Well, Don is trying to change his tune just a little bit. You know, he has a pretty negative attitude and he spouts out with those words. And Nursite, though he can't understand the meaning of that profanity, he sure does get the feeling behind it. And so Don's trying to tone it down just a little bit anyway. For Don, I guess it's pretty good. And while they were doing that, they had started talking about a part in the story where the Nomen have this thing that they use to warn others off at a great distance, perhaps to warn them of danger or to say, hey, I'm in trouble, I need help. And they do this not with a vocalization, but rather a kind of sound they create out of their stomachs and their chests and so on, a sort of grunting, thumping sound. And so Don has tried his hand at doing this. Not so good yet, but he might be able to get it eventually. Anyway, right at this point, Raquela of the Peralt clan has arrived. And you'll recall the Peralts are the people who are the same ones as Pita and Pia, who had helped Teresa come into the Valle Bajo and told her all about their situation and so on. So let's see what she has to add to the story at this point. Chapter 41. Raquela's large almond-shaped eyes looked over Don. She stood at his height but smaller boned. Her ears were long, coming to a slightly rounded point at the top. If Don had really believed in this experience, he might have concluded she was an elf. But her quiet beauty reminded him of someone he knew, though he couldn't recall who. There was definitely something familiar about her, but fanciful thoughts of elves didn't enter his mind. She extended a long-fingered, delicately boned hand. He shook it gently, noting her firm grip and cool skin. I am Raquela of the Peralta steeple, she said. I am glad you are our very first visitor to the Rio Grande Valley in a couple of generations. Welcome. She appeared to evaluate his demeanor, evidently figuring he was damn well confused and didn't need any more information right now. Don struggled for something to say. So, well, thank you. I take it you know about my valley and how... Oh, yes. My great-great-grandmother was Pia. I trust you know of her. Yeah, my new little friend here, Nursite, told me the story about Pia and her sister Pita and Teresa from my own valley and the bat. Good. Then we can talk. But first, I'm hungry after that long walk from Peralta steeples. I left before dawn. She gave Nursite a look that indicated she was ready for some piping hot Nomen stew. As if waking from a deep nap, Nursite smiled. Of course, I can rustle up something. Don didn't want to take his eyes off of Raquela. He tried to back away a couple of steps, but she still held his hand. Why don't all of you go down, he suggested. I'll get some fresh air and see you later. Raquela looked offended, but shrugged. Releasing Don's hand, she slipped away into the roomier portion of Nursite's root home. This may be another side effect of my delirium, but who cares? She's damn good looking, though a little too tall and cool in her response to me. We'll see. A few other Nomen followed Nursite and Raquela into his root home, while the rest milled around, glancing sideways at Don, who pretended not to notice. Any of you know where I can get a good cold beer? The Nomen lost interest and drifted away. Don looked down Nursite's hole and wondered if he could handle going back down there. But by the time he decided to try, Raquela emerged, appearing calm and more approachable. She looked at Don for a long moment. I'm told you were brought here by Nightwing, our reluctant ally from Lugosi. Yeah, well, that mouse with wings wasn't reluctant to lure me here with some story about how you need help, and I was the one to do it. Look, no offense, but I am not looking to be some kind of hero, especially in the middle of delirium tremens. I don't know what that is, but we're not asking you to be a hero. We just need someone who can deal with the Sorais. We don't understand what they're capable of, and Teresa was pretty smart. So what? I'm not Teresa. Don't want to be. He noted the strong disappointment in her eyes, though her face and posture revealed nothing of her mood. He tried to be patient because he realized this very exotic, tall woman didn't deserve his attitude. After the disaster with Bess, he wasn't ready or really in a mood for a relationship, although a fling wouldn't be a bad idea. Maybe. Look, I'm just not what any of you are looking for. Besides, you don't have any beer. Your way of life is strange, and this is all a big hallucination. I'm talking to figments of my tortured imagination. Too much hurt, shock, and not a little alcohol has sent me screaming and whimpering into this delusion to protect me from going flat out insane. Save your breath and don't tax my alcohol-induced imagination. Leave me alone and destroy enough brain cells that I won't hurt anyone. Raquel's disappointment turned into a combination of sympathy and sorrow. I'm sorry. This seems to be a bad time for you. We thought with your heritage you could possibly be of assistance. What the hell's my heritage to do with it? The real influence in my life was my worthless father. To escape him and his fate, I got a good education so I could make a living working with my mind, spout off in front of students who couldn't question much, and get extended time off. I didn't want to work my ass off doing highway construction like my dad. Though he did appreciate a good strong bottle of beer or wine and could carry on a pretty damn good discussion on the pointlessness of the universe. Raquel stared into Don's eyes. We're not impressed by your attitude. There's a purpose here for you. We don't expect miracles, just someone who can understand better how the Sorais think. We of the clans of the Vai don't plan well. We know you can. If you want to leave, go ahead. Well, seeing how there aren't any bars or beer here, I think I will. This is an interesting story, but fantasy bullshit. Sorry. Isn't my preference. I'm hoping my next delirium will be more erotic and less detailed and weird. Don turned to go, and then realized he didn't know where to go. How does one escape a hallucination and return to reality, or at least change delusional narratives? He was pointed more or less north. Scanning the horizon, he saw the Sorais Tower off to his immediate right, and what looked like a Himalayan-sized Manzano Mountains to the far right. He had a feeling those weren't his Manzano Mountains. Somewhere down in the valley, he recalled, was the portal. If this nightmare was going to be consistent, he needed to go there to pass back into the real Rio Grande Valley. Raquel stepped beside him and pointed between the tower and the distant mountains. Down that way is the path you came up. You should recognize the portal as you head down to the valley floor. I will send Nightwing to meet you there, so he can assist you to pass through the portal. Thanks, he said, somewhat subdued. She was nice and patient with him, as she should be, since she was a figment of his twisted imagination. Her clothing was form-fitting like a dancer's bodysuit, reminding him of the young women in the dance classes at the college. But it appeared to be more than, well, it was like a thick, tawny fur, more than textile, with its shifting highlights of black on the surface. Her skin was almost the same tone as the bodysuit, giving her almost nude look, though the details were hidden. He briefly wondered how she would look naked. Nah, forget it. Just get out of here. You can have horny wet dreams later, devoid of this complicated situation. Maybe I'll see you in another dream, Don said with a sly grin. Sorry, this is the only dream I live in, she said, ignoring his suggestion. As she turned away, he noticed a curious white pattern covering her nicely shaped butt. Dismissing that, he headed in the direction she had pointed. Well, there you have it. This will be the last chapter I'm going to read in this Story Guy series, but not the very last chapter, just the last continuous one. I will, at a later time, introduce a few samples, teasers you might call them, that's coming ahead. I'll be very careful not to have any spoilers included, of course. And it may be that you're looking at this sometime after I've done this and those teasers are already there. I would still recommend maybe holding off a little bit, go ahead and start reading, and then maybe kind of peek and see what's coming up if you haven't already read that part yet. I'll do a couple of them. I haven't got an exact count yet. You'll see when you get to them. But right now, I just want to leave you with a few things that maybe will get you to read the book. And by the way, I left off on page 155. So the very next chapter, 42, starts on 156. Now, what happens to Don once he's back in the Rio Grande Valley? Quite a bit, actually. You'll have to find out. And what will Nightwing the Bat and Nursite and Rockella and all of those clans do now? And how will they figure in the rest of the story? You know, those clans that have been briefly mentioned have some pretty strange names. And you're going to find out a lot more about them. You're going to get to meet them, again, interact with them as Dawn does, and even get involved in a number of adventures and all sorts of exciting stuff in the rest of the story. Because you're only a little more than a third through the story if you've been following all of my story guide chapters. And then, of course, what is Don going to do now? He goes back to the Valle, then what? And then beyond that, many mysteries are going to arise, new mysteries as well as some of the mysteries I've already introduced to you. And some will be revealed by the end of the book, while others will not. Because guess what? This is part of a series. There's a book 2 and a book 3. And what of the Tower of Il Serrohe? What about that thing? There's more to learn about its past and, of course, in the future. So there's a lot to wonder about, and there's a lot to find out if you'll read. You can go to my website that is listed here at the end of all of my readings. And right there, you'll go to a certain page where you can buy a book directly from me. You can use any type of credit card you want, and then I'll mail order it to you signed. And I'll even personally put your name in it with a little short message. However, if you want to go a more quick commercial way, you can go to Amazon as well as Barnes & Noble and many other sites. All of those are, I have links to them on my website, which is rjmirabal.wordpress.com. So please visit that and get on with the rest of this story. Thank you very much, and until another time, Story Guy saying bye.